Yeah, man. Thursday night, guys. Appreciate you guys coming out, man. It's great to see you guys. Always, something I look forward to every Thursday, man. As being with with my brothers and being in a fellowship, and just spending time in the Word and just feeding off one another, man. So I really appreciate your sacrifice and you honoring the Lord and being out here, man. Tonight, life lessons from a game of checkers, man. And I know that one sounds crazy, but hopefully it'll make sense by the end of it. So I'm gonna go ahead and share screen. We're gonna be in the book of Ecclesiastes 2 tonight. So if you have your Bible, Ecclesiastes 2. This was Solomon who wrote this. This is David's son. Solomon, the wisest man that ever lived on the earth. Solomon's riches. I mean, if you took Elon Musk, Bill Gates, a couple of Middle Eastern sheiks, some Russian oligarchs, and put all their money together, and half of Silicon Valley still wouldn't amount to the net worth that Solomon had. Solomon was by far the richest man ever recorded in history, as far as wealth can go. And when Solomon was born, God asked him, "What do you want?" And he said, "Wisdom." He didn't ask for money, but through since he asked for wisdom, God blessed him abundantly. Now, Solomon in his last days went haywire with all his concubines and his wives. And it was said he started to worship false gods and different idols. And to this day, it's said that Freemasonry started with King Solomon. That's still debatable, but it's a strong myth. Let me put it to you like that. So we see that Solomon had everything, and yet he found everything meaningless. He found nothing. All his hard work, everything that he did to earn, I mean, the concubines, the vineyards, the cattle, the slaves that he owned, the houses, it meant nothing because everything he did was apart from the will of God. And so what does this have to do with checkers? Well, now it comes to us. Life is basically a checkerboard game. You unbox and you set up in life. And checkers, and if you've noticed one thing in checkers, every little checker piece has a crown on it. Every single one, every regulation checker, game piece has a crown already put on it. Now, that means that every checker piece has the potential of becoming a king in the game. If you ever play checkers, and hard to find somebody who has it, you know that when you achieve and you get to the other side of the board by making, strategic moves, when you get to the first thing you say is crown me. And so you place another checker piece on top of that one, and that is the significance of the crown in checkers. And now that checker piece is no longer just, confronted, or controlled by single moves. Now it can go across the board. It has domain over the entire checkerboard because it is a king. And I remember growing up as a kid, we would do flying kings and we would come up with our own rules for the game. But, once he was crowned king, that checker piece became like Superman. I mean, he was able to fly across the board and just eat up, the guy you were playing against, all of his checker pieces. And you just felt empowered. It was just like, wow, And gentlemen, every man that is born under the sun, and I'm going to use Solomon's term, that believes in Jesus Christ, that it becomes to the faith, that becomes a son of the living king, because we're not afforded, kingship, by default. It is we enter into it when we believe by faith. And then he calls us, sons and daughters of the king. So that makes us, the Bible says that we will, one day attain a crown of righteousness. So we have the potential of that kingdom. We have that kingdom mentality. But it's only when we get to the other side of what we need to do. And just like in checkers, every move counts. So, you have to be strategic in your moves, because if not, you make a wrong move, your opponent's going to eat you and just toss you to the side. And so that checker piece will never, ever become a king. And I say that because I think every single man, every single one of us has the potential to be a king in God's economy. We have the potential of being a king in God's kingdom as far as, who we are as men, if we follow the king in his steps, if we allow the king to move us across the board of life. Just like in checkers, there's a hand that is over that's making the moves for each checker piece. And in strategically moving it in place so it can attain and get to the other side to be crowned. But when we refuse the hand of providence, when we refuse God's guidance in our lives, and we just say, hey, you know what? I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to be the master of my own checkerboard game. And we start making the moves, and it's my hand that's guiding the checker pieces. Well, then that's when things collapse. That's when things go haywire. That's when the pieces start to get eaten up and they get tossed off to the side. And what I mean by that is you see men that are tossed off to the side of the board of life. I mean, how many men do you know right now that are either going through a situation, they're in a divorce, they've lost their kids, they've lost marriages, they've lost jobs, careers, different things, to sin, to bondages, to just reckless living, because they're pursuing the things of this earth and not pursuing God. And so we have an entire game of checkers where half the board has been cleared out off to the side, scattered to the side there. And all these checker pieces have never, ever become king. They had the potential. It was embedded in them. Everything, all the ingredients that were there for them to become a king and fulfill their destiny. But somewhere along the line, they didn't want the master checker player to have their hand over them. They decided to make their own moves. We say, oh, I'm going to take this career, or I'm going to buy this house, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that, or I'm going to marry this girl, and we make different moves in our lives. And sometimes life eats us up, and we are discarded to the side. We are that discarded checker piece, and we're like, man, what happened? Things look so good, and when we look at the board, it was like, hey, I was on my way to become king. That checker piece was making its way down the board to get crowned. And all of a sudden, that little red piece went boop and ate you up. And you were just tossed to the side, whether it was a divorce, whether it was, tragedy in your life, circumstances, anxiety, fear, depression, different things that blindside us in life. And we deviate from where God is taking us. And instead of focusing on God, we're just like, what happened? And then we just become another checker piece on the side of a game board, never to be seen from again, with no potential ever to get back in the game. Because once you are out in checkers, that's it. That piece can no longer go back to the board. The only way you can add another piece is by becoming a king. And then you take one of your discarded pieces and add it to the king, and now you got free reign on the board. So that's a life lesson right there. When we allow God to move in our lives, we can go across the board of life and become everything that God has called us, and be the man that God has called us, be the husband that God has called us, be the fathers that God has called us, be the employees that God has called us, be the friend, the brother that God has called us to be, to live the life potentially that God has for us, to know our purpose, to know our calling, to know why we're placed on this earth. But we've taken our own self-worth and we said, hey, you know what? I don't need the hand of God moving me around this board piece. I know what I'm doing. I can do this on my own. And then we've struck out and we've created tragedy. We've crashed ourselves on this game piece board. It's become a mess, and slowly but surely the pieces are getting less and less, and our lives is starting to come apart. And we're asking ourselves, man, but I'm making all the right moves. I mean, I got this career, and I thought this was the one, and this was a great job, and I thought this was the woman for me. But now we're getting divorced, and my kids don't want to talk to me, or different things, or I started to go down a path I shouldn't have, or I'm hooked on this, or I opened up the computer before I knew it. I'm looking at things I shouldn't, and different things will deviate us from the path that God has us to become kings. Because we've allowed ourselves to just say, you know what, like Solomon, I'm going to do what I want. I want to build houses. I want to build careers. I want to do so many things. And God's not calling us to do that. God's calling us to follow him, to let him guide us with his hand, guide our every move, because he's the only one that's going to take us to the other end of the board so we can become kings and fulfill our destiny on this earth. It's not going to be by our own hand. See, the thing is that we decide to make different moves, and then when we get eaten off the board and we lose another piece, we blame God for it. And we're like, hey, what's going on? I had a house, now I don't. Hey, now my kids, they were taken away. Or, hey, I had this great job and now I'm fired. And then we blame God. And we blame God for infirmities. We blame him for different things. We blame him for our health. And we never look at us. We never looked at the decisions we made on that game board. We're not God's hand moving us. It was our hand that was moving us along the board. And now we've gotten eaten. Now we've gotten pushed off to the side, and we're on the losing end. We're on the losing streak. All of a sudden, we went from 10 checker pieces to maybe 3. So now, we're like, wait a minute, I'm about to lose this game. And a lot of men have lost the game altogether. A lot of men have lost the game and never been able to recount. Fortunately, and I think for every man here tonight, we're still in the game. We still have pieces on the board that we can, that God can make moves and get us to where we need to be. But we need to remove our hand off the game piece and say, Lord, I need your hand over it. I need your hand over my life to guide me, to take me where you want me to be. But you see, the unfortunate thing is men today don't want that. We don't want to be led by God. We want to lead God. We want to lead God into, hey, I want to buy this house, so you need to provide me the money for it. Hey, I want to buy this house, and you need to take care of this. Or hey, I need help, so doesn't matter what I eat or how much I don't take care of my body, but you need to fix this. Or hey, my marriage is in shambles, but you need to fix it. Nobody told you to marry that woman. Nobody told you to buy that house. Nobody told you to buy that car. Nobody told you to invest those stocks. Did you count on God prior to doing that? Absolutely not. But now you find yourself in a jam, and now you're blaming God for it, and you want him to bail you out because all of a sudden it's a magic genie. It doesn't work out that way. We decided to take God's hand off the checkerboard piece and put our hand on there and make the moves of life, and now we are suffering the consequences. Just look around. There's a generation that's lost, a generation of children that fear nothing, that don't fear God. You have 9-year-old kids shooting people, committing heinous crimes. Every time I turn on the news or I see something, I'm like, this can't be happening. But it is. Why? Because a generation of men stopped following the commands of God, stopped becoming kings, and said, hey, you know what? This checker game, I got it. I can manage. I can manage, God. I played checkers before. I can do this. But this game of checkers isn't something that you're just going to toss and put on, and say, oh, okay, I lost, big deal. No, this is the life that we're talking about. This is your life. The potential of you becoming a king, the potential of you becoming who God created you to be hangs on the balance with every move that we make. Every day that we wake up, that God allows us the ability to wake up, we hold that checker piece in our hand and we have to say, God, either you move it or I'm going to move it. But we got to make a conscious decision. We have to start making a conscious decision. Am I going to move the pieces of my game, or is God going to move the pieces on the board? But I'm telling you, gentlemen, if you decided that it was going to be you in control, you're going to lose this game. You're going to lose it. And one day you're going to wake up and you're going to find all the pieces to the right of the board. And they're just going to be stacked up there. And you're going to look at your side of the board and it's going to be blank space. And to the right is going to be a stack of checkerboard pieces, checkers, each one with the potential of greatness, because each one was stamped with a crown on top of it, with the potential of being a king, of dominion over the board of life. But you decided you were going to be in control. You decided you were going to do things your way, Mr. Sinatra, And now we're paying an awful price for it. We're paying a hell of a price for it. We're paying for it in our marriages. We're paying for it in our personal lives. We're paying for it in our spiritual lives. We're paying for it in the destruction of our churches. I mean, the world is slowly coming apart. And I can trace all those problems right back to one thing. I can trace it back to every man that has professed Jesus Christ as his Savior. Because in the beginning, when God saw that chaos had erupted, that the forbidden fruit had been eaten from, he didn't ask Eve, where are you at? He asked Adam, where are you? Where are you, Adam? Because Adam was responsible for the garden. Adam was responsible that nobody ate from that fruit, that nobody touched that tree. So the Bible says that's through one man, sin entered the world through one man, not through a woman, even though Eve was the first one to sin. Notice how the Bible says through one man, sin entered the world. And that was Adam. And because he messed up, he put us in a direction of us failing. That doesn't give us a carte blanche excuse to say, hey, you know what? We were born to fail. No, we were born to succeed. We were born with a potential to have a crown over our heads on this life. So we are God's crowning achievement. But it's how we redeem ourselves in the game of life each and every day if we're going to reach that potential. You say, you know what? Solomon looked and he said, man, all I do is work, and I've built everything, and I've chased everything, and I've owned everything, and I've attained everything, and it's meaningless. It's like chasing the wind. It's literally chasing the wind. This is advice coming from the richest man on earth. He had concubines, thousands of wives, not one, but thousands, vineyards, cattle, people, the king from all over the earth would come to hear Solomon's wisdom. This wasn't no ordinary man. This was a man that was blessed by God beyond. I think one of the most blessed men in the Bible, with the potential of impossible greatness. But he chased what his eyes could see, not what his spirit can touch. He chased pleasures. He chased glory. He chased career. He chased houses. He chased the things of this earth. Saying, Solomon was an idiot. Son of David. You are within the lineage of Jesus. I mean, from Solomon's lineage, Jesus Christ was born. Wisest man on earth, richest man on earth. The guy had it all. Why wouldn't you worship God? You had everything at your disposal. So I can ask that same question of each and every one of us. Has God not given us everything? Has he not given us eternal life? What more can we ask for? So why do we persist on chasing the material things of this earth? Why do we insist on chasing careers and building houses and getting cars and toys and things and pleasures and all the things that this life offers? If the wisest man on earth said, bro, you're chasing wind. You're chasing the wind. This is meaningless. At the end of your day, it ain't going to bring you anything. It's going to bring you sorrow. But we spend an entire lifetime, in our careers, busting our behinds trying to achieve something. It was funny because the other day I was thinking, I said, man, every man enters a career field and he's passionate about it. And if he goes to school or, you go to a police academy or you go through some kind of training and you work and you sweat hard and you want to tear up, your career field, whatever it is. And you want to be the best at it. And so you give heart and soul into it. And about halfway, it becomes like, what am I doing? You became a slave to this. You're working 7 days a week. You're working 40, 50-hour work weeks. You're giving 110% to the boss. You're trying to hit that corner office. You're trying to get the promotion. You're trying to get everything. And all of a sudden, it's like, now you're just asking yourself, how many more years I got to do this? Then you start looking forward to retirement. Now all you want to do is retire. That dream job, the one that you would have done anything for, that you sacrificed for, that you spent nights, working at, giving blood, sweat, and tears to achieve that corner office or that position or that rank or whatever the case may be in your life. You gave 110% to it. And then all of a sudden, in a short time, that focus of being driven all of a sudden becomes, how many more years I got to retirement? I want to retire. What happened? What happened to the person that walked in there and gave everything, and all of a sudden now it's retirement? Now the only thing that's important to you is retiring. And then you retire, and then you're like, oh man, now what? I got nothing. I got a pension, I got this, I got a check coming in every month. Wow. And you look back at your life, and you said, really? I gave the best years of my life. I sacrificed kids' birthdays, anniversaries, didn't take vacation, worked, Sunday through Sunday. For what? Well, you know what? I got this beautiful house. I fixed it up, put the cabinets and the floors, did everything, got the yard. Then you look back and you're like, and a hurricane comes and destroys it in 30 seconds. Or you get old and you can't maintain it anymore. And when you're gone, you're just going to give it to your kids or, whoever you're going to give it to. Just like Solomon said, we had to give it to somebody who didn't work for it, who didn't put an ounce of work for it. I can just have to give it away. Everything that I built into it, it'll be gone. Meaningless, like chasing the wind. So we spend our entire lives, we spend our entire focus chasing the wind. We give the best that we've got to our careers. We give the best that we got to our pleasures of life. We give heart and soul to everything that we enjoy, that'll bring us money, that we think that'll bring us pleasure. We'll spend, time in our cars, in trips or in different things, whatever. And we'll give God goose egg. We'll give God 0 hours reading the Bible, 0 hours in prayer, 0 hours of learning his word, 0 hours of sitting in a meeting like this because we're too busy. We're too busy at work. We're too busy doing this. We're too busy doing that. And I don't have time for this. But one day you're going to realize that it's meaningless. Because you see, there was a king before you, the richest man on earth, who had more than you will ever have in 30 lifetimes. And he did the same thing you're trying to do on a very much smaller scale. I'm not going to say you and I are trying to do, on a very minute scale. And he came up with the conclusion, the wisest man to live on this earth to this day. And the conclusion was, it's meaningless. So if it's written there, it is written in plain sight that this man said, dude, don't go down this rabbit hole because you're just going to wind up with empty pockets and broken dreams and the biggest regrets of your life. He says that the only thing that is worth it is chasing God. And he didn't do it. To this day, we don't know if Solomon entered the kingdom of heaven because, like I said, in the last days of his life, before he died, he was worshiping pagan gods. He was worshiping the devil himself. I don't know where Solomon is at today. I can't say with 100% certainty that he entered the kingdom of heaven because the final days or years of his life, he chased pagan gods. But what about you and me? Yeah, we're not chasing pagan gods in the form of an altar or the god of Habubu or the sun god or the moon god. No. We're chasing the career gods. We're chasing the car gods. We're chasing the bank account gods. We're chasing the pleasure gods. Those are the gods we're chasing. Our God's a little bit more sophisticated. We don't have statues and temples. We just have lifestyles and career. We call them careers and necessities and different things. But the one thing we're not chasing is we're not chasing God. Because we see this beautiful checkerboard game and we're like, bro, I'm all in and I got this. And then the hand of God comes down to make the moves and we're like, ooh, I got this guy. And we start making moves and then lost one piece, lost another, lost another, lost another, lost another. Never realizing the potential that if we just make it across the board, we can become kings and we can own the board. We can rule the board. Why? Because that's what God told Adam. He said, I am giving you dominion over the birds of the air and the beasts of the sea and over all the creepy things. He gave him dominion over everything. Everything was under his dominion. But Adam decided to play checkers on his own. And so he was wiped off the board. And now we're coming in handicapped, playing a game. And we ask and we wonder why we're losing. We wonder why we're going through the situations we're going through, why we're going through the anxiety we're going through, the depression, the fear, the failures of this life. Gentlemen, I got one single answer. And that answer is us. We are the biggest enemy to that. because we decided that my hand can move the pieces on this game better than God can. And when we do that, you're never going to win a game of checkers in your life. You'll never know what it'll feel like to say, king me, to wear that crown, the potential that God has for us, not only the crown on this earth, but in the next life as well. Solomon was king of Israel, one of the great kings of Israel. But he died worshiping pagan Satanists. The rich one at that. That's not what I want for me. It's not what I want for you. It's not what I want for those men that are sitting on the side of the game piece. I want to make it to where I can get that crown and bring back another piece and attach it and say, okay, king me. Now I have more dominion over this table. Now I have dominion over my marriage. Now I have godly dominion over my children, over my life, over my situation, because God is moving the pieces of my life in a way, in a direction where I'm victorious. Because as long as my hand is over those checker pieces, then you might as well just toss them to the side. As long as your hand is over the checker pieces of your life, you might as well just toss it to the side, because you're not going to win this game. You're going to wind up losing. And you know what happens at the end of the game? Like everything, they collect all the pieces and they fold up the board and they put it in a box. And just like in life, at the end of the day, they're going to fold it and put it in a box and just put it away. That's the life lessons of a game of checkers. You can chase the world, you can chase your dreams, you can chase your houses, chase your cars, chase everything that you think you need or that you want or that, hey, you're entitled to. I'm not going to stand in your way, gentlemen. King Solomon did about the same thing. Read the book of Ecclesiastes, it's very short, and you'll see. He was the most unhappiest man on earth. Because no matter how much he had, and no matter how much he attained, he never attained that relationship he needed with God. He never attained that deep relationship that he needed with God, that his father David had. He never got that. All the wisdom in the world, it finally clicked with him. It was a little bit too late. Vanity. As he says, and if you read the New King James translation, vanity, it's all vanity. Meaningless. Gentlemen, I pray tonight that you do not wake up king of the hill in a beautiful house, 3 or 4 cars on the outside, the beautiful life you think you've attained, the corner office, the career path you've chosen, you know, all the toys under the sun. And when you look back at your life, you're just going to say, meaningless, meaningless, just like King Solomon said. Because what we need to achieve in this great checkerboard of life is the hand of providence of God saying, Lord, take my checker pieces, whatever's left on the board tonight. Because maybe you got 1, maybe you got 2, maybe you got 3, you know, I don't know what your game pieces look like tonight. Maybe you're hanging on to one last piece and, you know, the other side against you is fully loaded. And there's no, you're thinking to yourself, there's no way I'm going to make it across this board and become king. But I can tell you 100% tonight, if you remove your hand from that game board and you ask God to place his hand over that last piece, he's going to get you to the other end and you're going to be crowned, and you're going to be crowned with the crown of life, and you're going to live to the potential that God has called you, and you are going to be a king, and you're going to have dominion, and you're going to be able to swoop over your enemies and whatever challenges you may face on that board of life. He's going to give you the dominion and the power to do it for one reason and one reason only, because you've allowed his hand to move you through the spaces. But if you decide not to, and you decide that your hand is more powerful than his, I'll see you on the side of the game piece. I'll see you when the box is filled it up and put away. Gentlemen, my prayer tonight is that we all get to the second half of that board and we all can sit there and say, king me, and have that crown of life placed upon us and live the life that God has called us with power, with intensity, and to be the man that he's called us to be all along. Forget the pieces that are on the side. Forget the pieces that you've lost in the game. That's done. Concentrate on the pieces before you. Let his hand move it and let him hear you say, King me, God. King me. Gentlemen, that's all I got, man. Floor is yours tonight.